Digital ID is the path to tyranny and the road to hell. As the Prime Minister rolls out this compulsory identification platform, which will affect access to public services, as well as the right to work and gain accommodation, will bring reaction from across the political spectrum. While some within government support the policy, an unlikely coalition of figures on the left and the right are already mounting a campaign against it, with the likes of Labour's ultra-left-wing MP Richard Burgon and Reform leader, the one and only Nigel Farage, united in their opposition to this policy. But most importantly, what do you think? 0344 499 1000. It's a story which is going to dominate the entirety of the show. I make no apologies for that. Executive producer Ted makes no apologies for that. It's the only show in town. Digital ID, yes or no? Book your place on the show. It's all about your opinions. Also, what about this in regard to Sir Keir Starmer? Is Andy Burnham the answer to Britain's problems? And are you sick, by the way, of seeing so many foreign flags on our streets? Robert Jenrick is very unhappy about it. He's given an exclusive interview to the Sun newspaper. Is it time to crack down on the proliferation of international symbols and instead celebrate our own flag for once? And Donald Trump said that Sharia law is coming to London. Was this an exaggeration or a foreshadowing of the future? What exactly is Sharia law? Why is it such a worry? I'll be speaking to a British Muslim who is deeply concerned about this illiberal, illegal and un-British method of justice. And a bit of royal gossip. Has Prince Harry's UK return driven a wedge between King Charles and his son William? We've got the inside story. 0344 499 1000. The next 3 hours is all about your opinions. Let's get them on the radio. Let's get them on TV. Let's talk. I'm delighted to say that the brilliant Annunziata Rees-Mogg is waiting in the wings. She's not happy about ID cards one bit. But first, Dolan's Dispatch. Compulsory digital ID is the end of Britain as we know it. To be honest, I've got a bit of deja vu going on because I sat in this very studio in 2020 hosting the Drive Time show during COVID when it was announced that the wearing of masks would be mandated in this country following previous suggestions that wearing one might be a good idea, a low-cost, harmless intervention. But remember, what starts as a benevolent suggestion and is marketed as being something for your own good is always ultimately the path to tyranny. Masks, just like digital ID, which by the way is a recycled idea from the pathologically wicked Tony Blair, masks were mandatory, and that was the problem, and that is the problem with digital ID. Now, in protest way back in 2020, live on Talk, on this very network, I tore up one of those filthy, worthless, scientifically empty face masks with a pair of scissors. And I'm so glad I did. And this great and fearless network, Talk, stood by me all the way. And we were vindicated. Because what followed in the months and years ahead was the worst example of state authoritarianism in the history of this country. The economic suicide of lockdowns, with healthy people prevented from going to work and providing for their families and contributing to the economy. Children as young as 11 masked all day long in the classroom. And with the bizarre obligation on millions of people to take a novel medication in their arm that statistically the vast majority did not need. And yet you had to have the jab to get a pint, to travel, to go to the cinema. Can you imagine if we'd had digital IDs during the pandemic? Yikes. Which is why we must not have them now. because they may appear to be a mild intervention at first, but will be leveraged against us very rapidly and aggressively when the next so-called emergency comes along. We will, of course, be fed the snake oil lie that this is about modernisation, that it's about streamlining everything, that it's about efficiency and that it's convenient. Well, if it's so good, if digital ID is such a great idea, why isn't it voluntary? Why can't we choose? Why is it going to be mandatory? I mean, your doctor doesn't have to mandate antibiotics when you've got an infection. The infection hurts, you take the antibiotics and it goes away. Why is it mandatory? Well, because ultimately it's against your best interests as a sovereign individual. That's why they're forcing it on you. The biggest lie from Starmer is that digital ID will, wait for it, tackle illegal immigration. Now, would that be the same as Keir Starmer that said he would grow the economy and smash the gangs? Digital ID will appear at first like a harmless, innocuous measure, but it provides the infrastructure for state interference in every aspect of our lives. Let's just leap forward and have a think about how this technology could pan out in the future. We're in a climate emergency, folks. Did you eat too much beef this week? Or have you taken too many flights this year? Well, I'm afraid you've maxed out your carbon allowance. You are staying home. You may want to travel or buy a steak, but your digital ID card won't let you. Criticise the government or a religion. I mean, dare you criticise Islam, the most precious, wonderful Islam. Don't criticise it. And if you do, that's going on your digital ID and may bring penalties. Perhaps you told an off-colour joke, a politically incorrect joke, when you were down the pub the other day with your mates. Well, that's going on your digital ID card, potentially. And maybe the last pint that you'll be buying because of your outrageous and awful hate speech. Yes, some of this is a worst-case scenario. I get you that. Some of you would call it a conspiracy theory. But they have a social credit score in China where your card stops working for minor indiscretions. And we are saying yes to that technology, and we are saying yes to that infrastructure here. We'll be tracked, surveilled, filmed, watched, snooped upon, invaded, violated, abused. Digital ID opens the door to an Orwellian nightmare. Big Brother isn't just watching you, he's in your pocket, he's on your smartphone, and effectively, he's in your soul. All of this brought to us by someone with no soul whatsoever, our current Prime Minister, who doesn't even feel like a real person himself. How ironic that someone so robot-like should roll out this technology. Sir Keir Starmer, the human manifestation of ChatGPT software gone horribly wrong. If you thought that COVID was authoritarian tyranny, you ain't seen nothing yet. This, like the chopped up mask all those years ago, is a hill to die on. Peacefully, obviously, and within the law. But ultimately, digital ID means that you are not a free, self-determining human being anymore. You're nothing more than a bundle of data waiting to be absorbed into the government's ruthless algorithm. This scheme will be open to hackers, corruption, it will be riven with mistakes and errors, and it won't stop illegal immigration, as crooked employers, for example, already know that they're breaking the law by hiring illegals. And some of those illegals will turn to crime if they can't work, so be careful what you wish for. And this scheme will cost billions. It'll cost billions. Money that, thanks to Rachel from Accounts, we don't have. But the real price, in terms of our fundamental freedoms and our humanity, will be far higher than that. I'd like to present my digital ID card to the Prime Minister personally, and I'd like to present it where the sun doesn't shine. Now, where's my scissors? Your reaction, 03444991000, with me now live on the programme, the head of communications at Popular Conservatism. Someone feels very strongly about this topic, is Annunziata Rees-Mogg. Good morning, Annunziata. Welcome to Talk.
Good morning, Mark.
Well, listen, I mean, I'm very, very concerned about the cost of this and the impact on our civil liberties. What's your take on this rollout of digital IDs, which will be mandatory?
It's absolutely appalling. It is clearly Keir Starmer trying to divert attention from all the disasters that are going on under his watch, from the economy to his own office falling to pieces to Mandelson and resignations. And he wants to come up with something shiny and exciting that he thinks people can get behind. He is completely wrong. The reason Tony Blair never got this through back in his day was because it was virtually impossible with the systems we've got. The cost was enormous. Even back in 2010, it was estimated to be £100 for every adult to put in place. Well, I don't know about your listeners, but I think another £100 in tax to cover a scheme we don't need is absolutely unconscionable at the moment. And then you've got the civil liberties arguments where, I mean, for the first time, I think probably ever, I am agreeing with Jeremy Corbyn, Richard Burgon, the Liberal Democrats, and Nigel Farage all in one go, because it is the wrong thing to do. This is Tony Blair's plan that was completely trashed, proven not to work, proven to impinge on our social liberties, and they've brought it back on acid. So imagine a granny without a smartphone who wants to report a pothole. Oh no. No, you can't prove that you've got a digital ID. Well, this is absurd. They are just as entitled to report a problem in their street as anyone else. And this will encompass all areas of our lives. You brought up the errors that could happen. I know from personal experience that in COVID, I was erroneously put down as a vulnerable person. It caused all sorts of problems. They thought I was still pregnant, although I had my baby in February 2020. And yet it carried on, and to go to anything I had to prove that I had had jabs, which I did not need. Now, the government as it stands, you might trust. I don't. I don't support Labour. I don't think Keir Starmer has a grasp on any of this. But if you do support this and you think Keir Starmer's the man to do it, will you be trusting Nigel Farage or Kemi Badenoch or whoever the next Prime Minister is to continue to use all your data from, no doubt, whether you've ever accessed an over-18s website through to what you've said on Twitter, via the problems with your local council, your employment, your ability to see your doctor? Do you trust them?
In the event of a Reform UK-led government or the return of the Conservatives, which, let's be honest, at the moment looks unlikely, but should either Kemi Badenoch or Nigel Farage become Prime Minister in 3 or 4 years' time, should they pledge to scrap this scheme?
Absolutely. It must be stopped before it starts, that there is no point messing up all our existing systems, that one of the reasons Tony Blair couldn't do it in his day was that it was virtually impossible to make driving licenses, doctors' records, passports, gun licenses, all the different forms of ID that people collect over their lives compatible into one database. But if the government has started doing that, they've already got a better picture of every aspect of our lives than I trust them with. Whoever does come in not only has to scrap it, but has to pledge that all of that data will then be separated back out again, because in the government's hands, it gives them a power that is deeply un-British, deeply unconstitutional. We are free men and women in our own country until the law says we're not, and this turns our entire legal system on its head.
Income tax, of course, back in the day was a temporary measure, and then it grew and remained with us to this day. Is there a danger that once this infrastructure is in place, it would be very difficult financially and perhaps politically for a future administration to scrap it?
It absolutely would. And once you've interconnected everything, as we know from leaving the European Union, disconnecting things again is a huge challenge.
So this is our only chance, you would say, this is our only chance to see this off at the pass, actually?
Of course you can always retrospectively change things, but it would be much better for the country, for our finances and for our liberty to make sure this doesn't happen now. I know there's a petition on the parliamentary website that overnight got 500,000 signatures. I hope that continues. I think the number 10 spin doctors, if there are any left after quite as many resignations as Keir Starmer has had recently in his office, will have been rewriting his speech rapidly. I suspect that he will water it down somewhat, but it needs to go entirely. I find it deeply ironic that he is giving this speech at the Global Progress Action Summit. This is a summit to defend and promote inclusive societies. That's what this is all about. It's an agenda to control the British people.
It's deeply worrying. Do you think that Starmer has underestimated the extent to which people do not want digital ID? Has he bitten off more than he can chew here?
I think clearly that I, like you, am no fan of Tony Blair, but he was certainly a lot more competent, able and politically agile than Keir Starmer. He also had the backing of his party, unlike Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer has lost his left-wing MPs already. His backbenchers have already rebelled against him, and he's trying to bring in a Blairite policy. That is not going to go down well with them, but also he is not competent. This is a phenomenally complicated and intricate, interconnected plan, and if Tony Blair couldn't do it, can Starmer?
Of course, you could argue, Annunziata, that the technology is now at the government's disposal, which it wasn't in the Blair years. What's the problem with having your medical records in one place and the ability to get benefits or rent a flat or purchase a mobile phone using one piece of identification? Surely it would make life a lot more convenient for people, wouldn't it?
I think it has very little impact. There's very few occasions on where any of those things overlap. We do have the ability to do all of those, and we have IDs for them. I have an NHS number. I have a driving license and a passport. I can travel. I can see my doctor. I can book appointments. I can drive on the roads. That you don't need to have all of that connected so that the government can have an exact idea of every aspect of your life. And I think if I worked in the public sector, I would be particularly worried about this. That what if they are tracking other aspects of your life and the government decides that's not the right kind of thing to be doing? You mentioned going to the pub and buying a pint. What if they think you've had too many pints?
Yeah, for your health, of course. To what extent do you think will the public dig their heels on this one? Will there be mass protests? Could this be a significant public demonstration?
I mean, I know that back in 2000, I think it's 2006, there were naked protests where people went down Whitehall with no clothes on whatsoever to show that they couldn't carry any form of ID. And I think this is a wonderfully British way to protest in the most practical possible way, that you can't carry a mobile phone. If you're stalkers, I will not be joining them. But I think the public feeling is strong on this. And I hope that the government, for once, is listening.
Annunziata, look forward to catching up very soon. Annunziata Rees-Mogg is the head of communications at Popular Conservatism. Digital ID, Mark, a big fat no. I've signed the petition. That's Michelle in Altrincham. Good morning, Mark. When will Starmer stand down? Digital ID is just a deflection tactic to cover his failing government. Anne in Kent, OMG, Mark, digital ID. I'm taking this very seriously and I'm completely against it. The government petition was signed by us last night to prevent their totally trying to control us. Mark, if I was Sir Stalin Starmer, I would be looking at the map of where over 705,000 people have signed in protest against digital ID.